Under the amber sunset of Asheville, a man quietly holds furniture, carrying the scars of his past. A woman stands on her porch, her eyes heavy with unspoken loneliness. A single unexpected sentence ripples through the stillness like a stone, tossed into a calm lake. "You're a lot stronger than my husband." Those words unravel a tale of longing, temptation, and fragile boundaries. Welcome to Hidden Tales, where we share real-life stories brimming with emotion and unforgettable surprises. If this story moves you, hit that like button and subscribe to join us in spreading meaningful stories. Now, let's dive into today's journey. The sun dips slowly behind the rolling hills of Asheville, North Carolina, casting a golden glow over a quiet suburban street. Craftsman-style homes with white picket fences line the block, their lawns neatly trimmed. The air carries the sweet scent of freshly cut grass, mingling with the soft rustle of wind through vibrant red maples. Sparrows chirp faintly in the distance. In this serene scene, Jake Turner, 35, steps out of his weathered blue pickup truck parked in front of the grandest house on the street, the home of Claire Bennett. Jake is tall and broad-shouldered, his gray t-shirt clinging to a muscular frame, honed by years in the military. His deep brown eyes are sharp yet tinged with a quiet sadness, as if they've seen more than he cares to share. A faint crescent-shaped scar runs across his right wrist, a remnant of a close call in Fallujah in 2009. He pulls his baseball cap, low double-checking the address scribbled on a piece of paper tucked in his jeans pocket. 47 Maple Street. "Yep, this is it," he mutters, his voice low and gravelly, each word carrying a weight born of someone who speaks sparingly but means every syllable. Jake isn't a professional mover, but he takes on odd jobs to make ends. Fixing leaky pipes, changing light bulbs, hauling furniture, anything to keep his hands busy and his mind from wandering back to darker days. Today, Claire Bennett, his new neighbor, called him to help move a heavy oak dresser and a few other items for a dinner party she's hosting. Her husband's some kind of CEO, Jake recalls from their brief phone call. Claire's voice was soft but trembled slightly, as if she were hiding exhaustion beneath her polite tone. He knocks on the door, the sound firm against the polished oak. A moment later it swings open. Claire Bennett stands there, slim and poised, wearing a pale blue silk dress that hugs her frame, ending just above the knee. Her dark brown hair is loosely tied back, a few strands falling across her forehead. Her green eyes are bright but weary, like a calm sea before a storm. "Jake, right?" she asks, her voice gentle yet warm. "That's me, ma'am," Jake replies, nodding politely. He glances inside. The living room is spacious, with gleaming hardwood floors and a crystal chandelier catching the light. But the space feels cold, almost sterile, like it lacks the warmth of a lived-in home. A dusty grand piano sits in one corner next to a bookshelf, filled with pristine novels that look untouched. "Thanks for coming," Claire says, stepping aside to let him in. "I need that dresser in the living room moved upstairs, and a few other things for the dinner party tonight." Jake nods, asking no questions. He doesn't like to chat much on the job. He steps inside, pulling a small dolly behind him, his worn boots thudding softly on the floor. The oak dresser Claire mentioned stands in the corner, nearly 6 feet tall and solid, carved with intricate patterns. "This thing's no lightweight," he says, half-joking, as he runs a hand along its edge to gauge its weight. Claire offers a faint smile, standing a few steps away, her hands clasped together. "I trust you can handle it," she says, her tone teasing but her eyes serious. Jake gets to work. He carefully removes the drawers, securing the dresser with straps for the move. His movements are precise, like a soldier executing a mission. As he lifts the dresser onto the dolly, his muscles flex but his face remains calm. Claire watches from the foot of the stairs, her gaze fixed on his every move, as if searching for something beyond the task at hand. Thus Jake starts pushing the dresser up the stairs. He accidentally bumps a small table nearby, knocking a framed photo to the floor with a sharp clack. He pauses, glancing back. It's a wedding photo. Claire, radiant in a white gown, standing next to a tall, lean man with blonde hair and a black tuxedo. The man, presumably Daniel Bennett, smiles, but it's a stiff, camera-ready grin. "Sorry," Jake says, bending to pick up the frame. Before he can set it back, Claire steps forward, quickly taking it from his hands. She stares at the photo, her fingers tracing the glass. A heavy silence lingers, as if she's lost in a memory she'd rather forget. Then, out of nowhere, she looks up, her eyes locking onto Jake's. "You're a lot stronger than my husband," she says, her voice low but deliberate, each word carefully chosen. Jake freezes. He stands upright, still gripping the dresser, trying to process her words. It's not just a compliment about his physical strength. There's something deeper, sharper, like a confession that shouldn't be spoken aloud. He doesn't respond immediately, searching her face for a hint of jest or impulsiveness, but Claire isn't smiling. She just stands there holding the frame, her gaze unwavering. "Just an observation," she adds, as if to diffuse the tension, but her sincerity only makes Jake more uneasy. He clears his throat, turning back to the dresser. "I'll get this upstairs," he says, his voice steady, as if trying to pull them both back to reality. He pushes the dresser up the stairs, the wood creaking under its weight. Claire remains at the foot of the stairs, watching silently. Once the dresser is in place in the upstairs bedroom, Jake wipes the sweat from his brow with the back of his hand. He checks to ensure everything's secure, then turns to Claire, who's standing in the doorway, arms crossed. "Anything else, ma'am?" he asks. Claire tilts her head, a small smile playing on her lips. "You always work this fast." "I get paid by the job, not the hour," Jake replies, his tone dry. "That's not what I meant," she says, stepping into the room, her bare feet gliding across the hardwood. She stops closer than necessary. "You don't talk much, do you?" "No need to," Jake says, his eyes briefly meeting hers before looking away. As if avoiding her gaze, she nods, as if understanding something unspoken. "Thanks, Jake. I'll call if I need anything else." He nods, grabs his dolly and heads downstairs. At the front door, he hears her voice. "Jake." He turns. Claire stands in the hallway, the light from the window casting a soft glow around her hair. "Care for a glass of water before you go?" she asks. "I'm good," he replies, his voice gentle but firm. He steps outside, not looking back. As Jake climbs into his truck, he glances at the house one last time. Claire's silhouette lingers in the doorway, her eyes following him. Her words, "You're a lot stronger than my husband," echo in his mind, like a melody he can't shake. He starts the engine and drives off, but a sense of unease clings to him. That wasn't just a compliment. It was a door cracking open, leading to a place neither of them might be ready to enter. A week has passed since that golden afternoon when Claire Bennett's words etched themselves into Jake Turner's mind. Asheville remains peaceful, with tree-lined streets and birds singing each morning. But beneath Jake's calm exterior, a quiet storm brews. Claire's words, "You're a lot stronger than my husband," weren't just a passing remark. They were an invitation, revealing the loneliness of a woman living in a grand but empty home. Jake sits in his small apartment, on a worn armchair by the window. Early morning light filters through thin curtains, illuminating a black and white photo. On the table, his mother, smiling softly beside her two young sons. He holds a coffee mug, his fingers tracing its rim, lost in thought. His life is simple: work, pay rent, keep his mind occupied to avoid the ghosts of his military past. But Claire, with her wistful smile and trembling voice, has disrupted that simplicity. A knock at the door interrupts his thoughts. Jake sets down his coffee and opens it. Claire stands there, wearing a cream-colored sweater and fitted jeans, her dark brown hair loose, a few strands falling over her shoulders. She holds a small toolbox, offering a shy smile. "Hey, Jake," she says softly, "my kitchen faucet's leaking. Could you take a look?" Jake nods, no questions asked. "Let me grab my tools," he says, stepping inside to retrieve his kit. This is the third time this week Claire has called him for help fixing a door hinge, moving a heavy box of books from the garage. Small tasks, but enough to draw them closer, inch by inch. In Claire's kitchen, sunlight streams through a large window, glinting off the marble countertop. The faucet drips steadily, forming a small puddle in the sink. Jake kneels, inspecting the pipes beneath. Claire leans against the counter, arms crossed, watching him. "You're good at this stuff," she says, a hint of admiration in her voice. "My husband Daniel never touches anything around the house." Jake doesn't look up, muttering, "Everyone's got their way of doing things." He tightens a bolt, the metal clinking softly, but he feels Claire's gaze as if she's searching for hired help. Claire continues, her voice fading. "He's always busy: meetings, business trips, dinners with clients. Sometimes I don't see him for a week." She pauses, as if realizing she's said too much. "Sir, I didn't mean to complain." Jake stands, wiping his hands on a rag. "It's fine," he says, meeting her eyes. "Sounds like you needed to get that off your chest." Claire smiles, but it's tinged with sadness. "Maybe you ever feel like you're living in a play, but no one gave you the script?" Jake nods. "Slowly in the military, yeah, orders come, you follow, no questions. But back here, no one tells you how to live." He stops, surprised at his own candor. He's not used to opening up, especially to someone he barely knows. Claire's eyes light up, as if she's found a connection. "I wanted to be an artist," she says, her voice barely above a whisper. "I painted as a kid, dreamed of showing my work in galleries, but Daniel, he said it was a childish hobby, not practical. That I should focus on being a good wife." She gives a dry laugh, looking away. "Sounds pathetic saying it out loud." "Not pathetic," Jake says, his voice low. "Sounds like you gave up a piece of yourself." The air between them grows heavy, as if they've touched on a truth neither wants to admit. Jake turns back to the faucet, testing it. The water flows smoothly, no leaks. "All done," he says, packing up his tools. "Thanks," Claire says, stepping closer. "Hey, Jake, you free tonight? I made a pot roast way too much for one person. Want to join me?" Jake pauses, gripping his toolbox. He knows this invitation isn't just about dinner. Something in her voice, in the way she looks at him, makes his pulse quicken. "I don't know." He starts, but Claire cuts in. "Just dinner," she says quickly, as if reassuring them both. "I don't want to eat alone in this house. It's too quiet." Jake looks at her, seeing the sincerity in her eyes. He thinks of his own apartment, with its solitary dining table and leftover takeout. All right, he says softly. But don't expect me to be a big talker. Claire laughs, a real laugh that brightens the kitchen. I won't hold it against you. That evening they sit across from each other at a sturdy oak dining table. Candlelight flickers, casting a warm glow over the simple but hearty meal. Pot roast, mashed potatoes, and a green salad. Claire wears a deep red sweater, her hair loose, making her look younger, as if she's rediscovering herself. Where'd you grow up? Claire asks, sipping red wine. Outside Charlotte, Jake replies, cutting into his roast. Mom raised me and my brother alone. Worked as a cleaner, kept the house spotless. She always said, even if you're broke, live with dignity. Claire nods, her eyes softening. Your mom sounds like a strong woman. She was, Jake says, his voice quieter. Lost her to lung cancer, never smoked, but secondhand smoke from her job, the doctors said. He pauses, staring at his plate. She's why I joined. The military wanted to make her proud. Claire sets down her fork, her hands clasped on the table. I'm sorry, Jake, losing someone like that. It must have been hard. Jake shrugs, brushing off the pain. That's life. What about you? How'd you grow up? Claire shares stories of her childhood in Raleigh, painting by her bedroom window, losing her dad in a car accident. My mom used to say, Claire, you could paint the world if you wanted. But after marrying Daniel, I stopped. He said it wouldn't pay the bills, that it wasn't worth it. She pauses, staring into her wine glass. Maybe I was wrong too. Listen to him. Jake meets her gaze, his eyes softer than usual. It's not too late to start again, he says. You've got time. Claire smiles, her eyes shining with longing. When dinner ends, they clear the table together. While washing dishes, their hands brush under the warm water. They both freeze, the air thick with tension. Jake pulls his hand back, drying it on a towel. Thanks for dinner, he says, his voice rough. I should head out. Claire nods, walking him to the door. As he steps outside, she calls after him. Jake, thanks for staying. It's been a long time since I didn't feel alone. Jake turns, their eyes meeting in the dim porch light. Any time, he says, then walks into the night, his silhouette fading into the darkness. But as he reaches his apartment, Claire's words linger. He knows, though he won't admit it, that something is growing between them, something dangerous, but undeniable. Rain begins to fall over Asheville, tapping softly against rooftops, like the heartbeat of a town settling into sleep. Wind howls through the maples, carrying the chill of an approaching autumn storm. Streetlights flicker faintly, blurred by the downpour, casting the neighborhood in patchy shadows. In Jake Turner's small apartment, a single candle on the dining table flickers, its light dancing across peeling white walls. Jake sits in his armchair, holding a cold coffee mug, staring out the window. A week since the dinner at Claire's, and he can't stop thinking about her sad smile, her trembling voice as she spoke of buried dreams, the fleeting touch of their hands in the sink. Those moments are like pebbles dropped into the still lake of his life, sending ripples he can't ignore. He knows he's treading dangerous ground, but something about Claire keeps him from turning away. A loud knock at the door startles him. Jake sets down his mug and opens it. Claire stands there, her gray sweater soaked, dark hair plastered to her face. Her green eyes flash with panic, but also resolve. Jake, she says, her voice trembling, can I come in? The power's out at my place, and I'm scared. Jake nods instantly, opening the door wider. Get in here, he says, his voice calm but kind. He grabs a towel from a shelf and hands it to her. You're soaked. Claire takes the towel, wiping her hair and face, her hands still shaking. Thanks, she whispers, stepping into his modest living room. The space is sparse, just the armchair, a small wooden table, and a bookshelf stuffed with worn paperbacks. A photo of Jake's mother sits on the table, next to an old oil lamp. Claire glances around, as if piecing together who Jake is. Sit, Jake says, pointing to the chair. He heads to the kitchen, firing up the gas stove to reheat coffee. You okay? Running through a storm like this? Claire sits, pulling the towel around her shoulders like a shield against the storm outside and within. My house. It's too dark, she says. Daniel's on a business trip, and I couldn't stand the silence. Every time thunder cracked, I thought someone was at the door. Jake returns with 2 mugs of hot coffee, handing one to her. He sits on the floor across from her, leaning against the wall. It's just a storm, he says, but his eyes are sharp, searching her face. Or is something else scaring you? Claire sips her coffee, clutching the mug for warmth. I don't know, she says, her voice fading. I just feel like I'm losing control. Daniel, he is not the man I thought I knew. Or maybe I never really knew him. She looks up, meeting Jake's eyes. Ever feel like you're living the wrong life? Jake is quiet for a moment, the candlelight casting a shadow on the wall. Yeah, he says finally. After the military, I didn't know who I was, thought working and surviving would fix it. But sometimes, I wonder what I'm running from. Claire nods, as if his words touch something deep within her. I thought marrying Daniel was the answer, she says. He's successful, stable, everything my mom said I should want. But now, I feel like a decoration in his house. The air grows thick, as if the storm outside has seeped into the room. Jake looks at her, seeing the longing in her eyes, not just for connection but for life, for freedom. He wants to say something, but the words stick in his throat. Claire sets her mug down, standing and stepping closer. She sits on the floor, inches from him. Jake, she whispers, I don't know what I'm doing, but when I'm with you I feel like me. I haven't felt that in so long. Jake's heart pounds. He knows this moment is a line they shouldn't cross, but her eyes, her raw honesty, pull him in. He reaches out, brushing her cheek, his fingers grazing her rain-damp skin. Claire, he says, his voice rough, you don't know what you're doing to me. She leans in, and like a storm breaking, their lips meet. The kiss is slow but intense, as if releasing years of longing. His arms wrap around her waist, pulling her closer. But then, abruptly, Jake pulls back, breathing heavily. He grips her shoulders, holding her at arm's length. We can't, he says, his voice pained. You're married, and I don't want you to regret this. Claire looks at him, her eyes shining in the candlelight, not with anger or shame, but with clarity. I don't regret it, she says, her voice firm. I don't love Daniel. Maybe I never did, but I'm scared. Jake's scared of what people will say, of losing this life, even if it doesn't make me happy. Jake stands, turning away, his fists clenched. You have to be sure, he says, his voice low, because if we go further, there's no turning back. Before Claire can respond, headlights flash through the window, cutting through the rain. A car pulls up in front of her house, its beams glaring. Jake strides to the window, pulling the curtain aside. Someone there? He asks, his voice tense. Claire stands, peering over his shoulder. Daniel, she whispers, her voice trembling. He wasn't supposed to be back yet. Jake turns to her. You should go, he says, not coldly, but with concern. If he sees you here, she touches his arm lightly, as if to say something, then silently steps out into the rain. As she disappears into the darkness, Jake stands there, feeling like he's just lost a piece of himself. The next morning, sunlight filters through wet trees. Jake stands on his porch looking across at Claire's house. Daniel's sleek black sedan is still parked out front. Claire steps outside, wearing a white sweater, her hair tied up, her posture stiff as if bracing herself. Daniel follows, dressed in a sharp black suit, his eyes cold as they flick toward Jake. Jake doesn't look away. He meets Daniel's gaze, a silent challenge, but inside, he knows things just got a lot more complicated. Claire, with that kiss in the storm, has pulled them both into a tempest far bigger than the rain. The midday sun peeks through the maples on Maple Street, but the air inside Claire Bennett's grand home feels heavy, like the calm before a storm. The kitchen, once warmed by her dinner with Jake Turner, is now cold, filled only with the ticking of a wall clock. Claire stands by the counter, clutching a cold mug of tea, staring out the window. Daniel Bennett, her husband, left after a tense morning, his words still ringing in her ears. I know what you're doing, Claire. Don't think I'm blind. Since Daniel's unexpected return during the storm, everything has shifted. He's grown more controlling, checking her phone, questioning her whereabouts. Claire feels like a prisoner in her own home, a beautiful, suffocating cage. She knows Daniel suspects something about Jake, though he has no proof, but his cold, calculating gaze chills her. He's not a man easily fooled. Across the street, Jake stands in his small garage, wrench in hand, tinkering with his truck's engine. He tries to focus on work to keep his mind off Claire, off that kiss in the storm, off the way she looked at him like he was her only way out. But every rev of the engine brings her face back, her green eyes full of yearning and fear. He knows he's crossed a line, but his heart won't listen to reason. His phone rings, cutting through his thoughts. Jake wipes his hands and answers. A calm, professional voice speaks. Mr. Turner, this is Peter Klein, assistant to Mr. Daniel Bennett. Mr. Bennett would like to meet you, 3 p.m. today, at his office downtown. Will you be there? Jake's jaw tightens. What's he want? He asks, his voice low. He didn't specify. The man replies, but I suggest you show up. It'll be better for everyone. Jake hangs up without responding. He looks across the street, spotting Daniel's black sedan parked in Claire's driveway. A man in a gray suit steps out, holding a small camera. Jake narrows his eyes. Private investigator, he mutters, a hot flush running down his spine. Inside her house, Claire stands before her bedroom mirror, trying to steady herself. She wears a gray silk dress, her hair tied up, but her hands tremble as she fastens a button. This morning, Daniel left an envelope on the dining table. Inside were photos her and Jake walking in the park, Jake at her front door, and one shot through a window during the storm when she was at his apartment. None clearly prove an affair, but Daniel's intent is clear: intimidation. She hears the front door open, then Daniel's heavy footsteps. He enters the bedroom, still in his black suit, his hair neatly combed, but his eyes like steel. Claire, he says, his voice flat. What game do you think you're playing? Claire turns, forcing her voice to stay calm. I'm not playing any game, Daniel. You're the one hiring investigators to spy on me. Daniel laughs, cold and sharp, tossing the envelope onto the bed. You think I'm stupid. That neighbor of yours, the ex-soldier, he's around you too often. These photos are just the start. If I want, I can ruin you, your reputation, your friends, everything you have. Claire's face flushes, but she doesn't back down. The first time in years, she meets his gaze head-on, her voice firm. You don't care about me, Daniel. You care about your image. I don't need your money, and I'm not afraid of you anymore. Daniel raises an eyebrow as if shocked by her defiance. Is that so? Fine, play tough, and I'll cut off your accounts. You'll have nothing, no house, no car, not even the Mrs. Bennett title you lean on. Claire's nails dig into her palms. I don't need your name, she says, her voice shaking but resolute. I never did. Daniel steps closer, his cologne sharp and expensive. You'll regret this, he says, his voice low with menace. Then he turns, storming out, the door slamming behind him. Claire sinks onto the bed, her breathing ragged. She looks at the photos, seeing herself and Jake in the park. Their glance is heavy with meaning. She knows Daniel wants to break her, but this time, she won't crumble. Meanwhile, Jake drives to the small park near their street, where he and Claire once talked. He sees her on a wooden bench, her coat pulled tight, her hair shielding her. With face, he parks, walks over, and sits beside her. Claire, he says, his voice low. Daniel called me. He knows. Claire looks up, her eyes red but dry. He has photos, she says. Not enough to prove anything, but enough to threaten me. He wants me scared. Jake, he wants me back in line, playing his perfect little wife. Jake takes her hand, his touch warm and steady. You're not anyone's puppet, he says. But you've got to decide, Claire. I can't keep standing in the middle. If you want to stay with him, I'll walk away. I don't want you living on this edge. Claire's heart tightens. I don't want to stay with Daniel, she says, her voice trembling. But I'm scared, Jake. Scared of losing everything, my home, my friends, my reputation. I don't know if I'm strong enough to start over. Jake leans closer, his eyes locked on hers. You're stronger than you know, he says. I saw it the first day, when you talked about your painting. Dreams, but you have to choose, not for me, but for you. Claire falls silent, the wind rustling her hair. She thinks of the years in Daniel's shadow, the lonely nights in that big house, waiting for a husband who was never truly there. Then she thinks of Jake, his quiet honesty, the way he makes her feel valued. Jake, she says finally, her voice soft but certain. I need time, but I know I don't want to live like this anymore. Jake nods, not pushing her. I'll wait, he says, but not forever. That night, Claire returns home and slips into her secret workspace, a corner of the basement where she keeps her unfinished paintings. She pulls out an old canvas, painted before she married Daniel. It shows a woman standing in a field, hair blowing free, fearless and unbound. Claire touches the painting, tears rolling down her cheeks. She knows she can't keep living as a shadow, but to move forward, she'll have to face Daniel and herself. The sunset stretches over Asheville, gilding the distant hills and the wooden rooftops of Maple Street. A week has passed since Claire's tense confrontation with Daniel. The air in her grand home remains heavy, but something has shifted, not the house, but Claire herself. She stands before her bedroom mirror, wearing a forest green silk dress that hugs her frame, her dark hair loose and gleaming under the light. Tonight, she's hosting a small art show at a local gallery, where she's secretly submitted her paintings over the past months. This isn't just an event, it's a declaration, a turning point to reclaim her life. Jake, in his modest apartment, stands before his closet, holding a navy button-up he rarely wears. He's unsure if he should attend Claire's art show. After their talk in the park, he's given her space to decide, though his heart aches thinking of her. He knows she's at a crossroads: stay with Daniel in a loveless marriage or walk away, despite the risks. Jake doesn't want to pressure her, but he can't deny his feelings. He slips on the shirt, pulls his cap low, and heads out. A mix of hope and apprehension in his chest. At the gallery, the soft lights illuminate white walls lined with Claire's vibrant paintings, wild fields, portraits of strong women with resolute eyes. Guests, mostly local friends and art enthusiasts, mingle, murmuring admiration. Claire stands in a corner, holding a glass of wine, smiling at compliments, but a storm of emotions swirls within her. Daniel is there, standing at a distance, his black suit impeccable, his eyes cold as he watches her. He's not here to support her, he's here to maintain his image as the perfect husband. As the event peaks, the host, a warm-voiced woman in her 50s, invites Claire to the podium. The crowd claps, and Claire takes a deep breath, stepping forward. She scans the room, hoping to see Jake, but he's not there. A pang of disappointment hits, but she pushes it aside. This is her moment, no one else's. Thank you all for coming, Claire begins, her voice clear despite a slight tremble. These paintings aren't just art. They're my story, dreams I buried, fears I let control me. For years I lived as a shadow, trying to please others, holding on to a life I didn't want. She pauses, her eyes finding Daniel. He stands, rigid, gripping his wineglass tightly as if restraining himself. I thought happiness meant keeping everything together, Claire continues, her voice growing stronger. I was wrong. Happiness is living true to yourself. So tonight I'm announcing something. I'm divorcing my husband, Daniel Bennett. I'm choosing me. The crowd falls silent, then a few scattered claps grow into a wave of applause. Daniel freezes, his face pulling, but he says nothing, turning and storming out. The door slamming behind him, Claire feels a weight lift from her chest. She smiles, feeling free, thanks guests and tidies up. She steps into the parking lot, the moonlight bright overhead, and there he is, Jake, leaning against his old truck, hands in his pockets, cap low. He didn't attend the show, but he waited for her. As promised, you did it, Jake says, his voice warm as she approaches. Claire smiles, her eyes sparkling in the moonlight. I wasn't sure I could until I stood up there, she says. But when I said it, I knew there was no going back. Jake steps closer, his eyes locked on hers. I'm proud of you, he says, his voice sincere. Not for leaving him, but for choosing yourself. They stand in silence, the night air soft around them. Claire reaches out, her fingers brushing the scar on his wrist. Jake says softly, I don't know where this goes, but I want to try with you, if you're willing. Jake takes her hand, his fingers intertwining with hers, warm and steady. I've been willing since the day you said I was stronger than your husband, he says, a rare smile breaking through. 3 months later, Asheville settles into a gentle winter, with cold breezes sweeping through snow-dusted streets. Claire has sold the big house, moving into a cozy apartment near downtown. It's simple, with big windows overlooking the street and a corner for her easel. New paintings fill the space, each a piece of the woman she's rediscovering. Jake still lives in his apartment, still takes odd jobs, but now he stops by Claire's place often, bringing morning coffee or pastries from a local bakery. They don't rush. There are no grand promises or distant plans. They simply live, day by day, finding joy in the small things: a home-cooked meal, a walk in the snow, or sitting together, listening to the rain. One evening, Claire stands at her easel, finishing a new painting, a silhouette of 2 people holding hands under a starry sky, their faces indistinct but radiating peace. Jake walks in, setting a hot coffee on the table, glancing at the canvas. That's beautiful, he says softly. Who are they? Claire smiles, setting down her brush and turning to him. US, she says, or maybe anyone who finds each other after being lost for too long. Jake pulls her into his arms, holding her gently. I like that idea, he whispers. Outside, snow falls quietly, blanketing Asheville in white. In the small apartment, Claire and Jake stand together, no words needed. They've found each other, and this time they won't let go. Snow falls softly on Asheville, draping the rooftops in a delicate white veil. In Claire Bennett's cozy apartment, a desk lamp's glow illuminates her latest painting: 2 figures, holding hands under a starry sky, their faces undefined but brimming with peace. Claire stands there, paintbrush still streaked with color, her green eyes shining with a joy she thought she'd lost forever. Jake Turner sits by the window, coffee mug in hand, a rare smile playing on his lips as he watches her. They don't say much, but their silence is no longer heavy. It's a quiet promise that they'll walk this path together, unhurried but true. Claire and Jake's story isn't about grand triumphs or perfect endings. It's about finding yourself again, about daring to choose the harder road to live true to your heart. Claire stepped out of Daniel's shadow, not just to escape a loveless marriage, but to prove she deserves happiness. Jake, with his quiet strength, didn't promise to save her. He stood by her, giving her the courage to save herself. Under Asheville's starry skies, they found each other, and more importantly, they found themselves. This is Hidden Tales, where we share stories of ordinary people on extraordinary journeys. Claire and Jake remind us that true strength isn't always in what you carry, but in what you dare to let go. Have you ever stood at a crossroads in your life? What gave you the courage to take that step, knowing the path ahead wouldn't be easy? Share your story in the comments. We want to hear about the moments that shaped you. Don't forget to like and subscribe to catch more heartfelt stories from Hidden Tales. Let's keep exploring the hidden corners of the heart and the journeys that lead us to freedom.